Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press, is joining us now. Kristen, you just got off the phone with the President of the United States, and he talked to you about Khamenei and the possibility that he may have been killed in strikes. What did he tell you?
This was an extraordinary 3-minute conversation, Yasmin. Let me read you the key takeaways. I asked President Trump if he had confirmation that Ayatollah Khamenei has in fact been killed. He said to me, I've spoken to a lot of people. We feel that is a correct story. Again, when I asked him about the reports that the Supreme Leader has in fact been killed, President Trump saying, we feel that is a correct story. He went on to say, quote, a large number of their leaders have also been killed. And that was significant. The fact that he said this was not just one person, Yasmin, the fact that, according to President Trump, in this phone call that I have with him, he believes it's a correct story that the Supreme Leader has been killed, along with, he says, a large amount of leadership. He says there were 3 attacks, and he says that in some of those subsequent attacks, that is what ultimately killed the leadership of Iran. I asked him when he would know that this operation has been a success. He said it is going very well. We're probably, in terms of 0 to 10, we're close to the 10 spot, if not there. It's going very well. Tremendous damage has been inflicted. The leadership is gone. Large portions of the leadership. They don't know how many, he says, but he says that the leadership has largely been wiped out from Iran. So a significant
huge news
revelation and development in this 3-minute conversation with President Trump. When I said specifically, sir, how will you know that this has been a success? He said, quote, Yasmin, I think it's already been a success.
When he talks about we're at the 10 spot, Kristen, what do you think he means by that? As in the operation has gone well, or we're almost done? We're almost there.
I think both. I think he is arguing that so far he believes that the United States has hit its targets, that the United States strategy is playing out. It seemed to be that was part of what he was arguing. But I go back to this last statement, and I'll read it to you in full. I was trying to get a sense of just how long this would be. He said, I think it's already been a success. We've inflicted tremendous damage. It would take them years to rebuild. And then I tried to pin him down on a timeline. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, he said he is making a number of calls right now, speaking to other foreign leaders, and had to end the conversation at that point. But in those 3 minutes, again, saying that the U.S. believes that it is a correct report that the Supreme Leader is killed.
I know this was just 3 minutes, Kristen, but I'm going to ask you to read between the lines a little bit more, which you're very good at. When you were talking to this president, we have heard a little bit about what he wants to happen next, but I think it's important to reiterate for folks what it is he wants to happen next, right? If he's reaching this 10, he feels as if we are almost there. It has been a success. Is this now handing the baton over to the Iranian people to see what then happens, what they're able to do to essentially work towards regime change? And if, in fact, they're not able to pull that off, I mean, there is still the Revolutionary Guard. There are still members of the Supreme Council that are still very much alive. Is the United States, is Israel willing to go back into the ring?
Well, I think that's the big question, Yasmin, about what happens next. In his public comments earlier today, he obviously called on the people of Iran to rise up to seize this moment. I asked him who is going to replace the Supreme Leader if, in fact, he has been killed. And he essentially said, well, they'll likely call me and get my take on that. He said, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but it's clear there's a vacuum, that it's not entirely clear. And that's where he points back to the Iranian people themselves to, in this moment, rise up, seize the moment, and carry out regime change in terms of replacing leadership.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.